Welcome back to our channel, GH fam. Today is an absolutely beautiful day to dive deep into the breathtaking, heart-stopping drama currently unfolding in Port Charles. We have so much to unpack about this week's devastating twists, so let's jump right into the action. The silence in that room was deafening, broken only by the sharp, terrifying clatter of a smartphone hitting the hardwood floor. When Josslyn Jacks received that international call from the Australian Federal Police, the very air in Port Charles seemed to shatter, capturing a seismic shift in momentum and the impossible choices now facing everyone involved. The news that Jax's sailboat was found washed up on a remote reef, with his lifeless body discovered inside the cabin, is a narrative earthquake. I genuinely think we're missing the point if we don't recognize this as the defining moment of Josslyn's entire adult life. The cinematic, high-tension hook of her dropping that phone, her eyes wide with a devastation so profound it physically knocked the wind out of me, was television perfection. I feel so incredibly shattered by the opening moments of this episode, because to me it finally proved that the writers are willing to take massive, irreversible risks with legacy characters to push the new generation forward. I feel so incredibly moved by that immediate aftermath scene, because to me, it perfectly showcased the depth of the unbreakable bond between Carly and Josslyn. When Carly rushed into the room, abandoning whatever she was doing to fiercely pull her desperately sobbing daughter into her arms, I felt a massive lump form in my throat. I love the way the lighting changed when Carly wrapped her arms around Josslyn, shifting from the harsh, cold daylight of the tragic news to a softer, more intimate shadow that enveloped them in shared, agonizing grief. I think the writer's choice to have Carly hold her without saying a single word initially was brilliant, because it made me feel the sheer, suffocating weight of Josslyn's despair. It wasn't about Carly trying to fix it, it was about Carly grounding her daughter when her entire world had just... Laura Wright's physical acting, dropping to the floor to hold her child, was raw, visceral, and completely unforgettable. The way I see it, the absolute tragedy of this moment is anchored in Josslyn's profound, inescapable guilt. I believe the writers are doing something extraordinary by tying Jax's death directly back to their recent, unresolved arguments about her joining the WSB. Josslyn is drowning in the realization that she never got to apologize to her father before he set sail. Eden McCoy's delivery of that broken sob, whispering that she never got to say she was sorry for their fight, gave me absolute chills. I feel like this is the best they've written Josslyn because they aren't letting her off the hook. She has to sit with the agonizing reality that her last interactions with her father were steeped in conflict over the very spy agency that is now defining her existence. It adds a layer of tragic irony to his death that grounds her grief in a deeply personal regret. But then, we witnessed a pivot so sharp and so brilliantly executed that I actually cheered at my screen. I think Josslyn's transition from a devastated, grieving daughter to a cold, calculating WSB operative is the most compelling character evolution we have seen in years. When she wiped her tears and began reading the preliminary police report from Australia, her posture completely changed. I feel so incredibly validated by her immediate suspicion. Jax is a master sailor. He has navigated the globe for decades. The idea that he would wreck his vessel in completely normal weather conditions is absurd, and Josslyn knows it. The way she narrowed her eyes and stated that Jax wouldn't make a rookie mistake on the open water was the exact moment she transformed from a victim into a relentless hunter. I know a lot of people are saying this storyline is dragging, or that killing off a legacy character like Jax off-screen is a massive mistake, but I actually think this is exactly what's needed because I feel like it provides the ultimate crucible for Josslyn. This isn't just about losing a father, it's about the fatal consequences of the life she has chosen. In my opinion, this narrative choice grounds her WSB storyline in deeply personal, terrifying state. It forces her to face the reality that her takedowns of Ross Cullum and her interference with Jen Sidwell's associates have real, bloody blowback. I believe the writers are brilliantly connecting her past actions to her current tragedy, making her suspect that Cullum's Ghost Network or Sidwell's goons murdered Jax as revenge against them. It makes the sprawling international spy drama feel incredibly intimate and claustrophobic. This brings me to the absolute powerhouse scene, where Josslyn confronts WSB leader Agent Z. I genuinely think we're missing the point if we don't applaud the sheer audacity of Josslyn demanding classified satellite access to the remote Australian water. I loved the fierce, unyielding tone in her voice when she demanded that Z give her the clearance. She wasn't asking for a favor from her boss, she was demanding the tools to wage a global war. I feel like this scene perfectly encapsulated her impossible choice. Remain a grieving civilian, or leverage the dangerous power of the agency she sacrificed her family relationship. The way I interpret it, Z's hesitation only fueled her fire, proving that she is now operating on a level where she trusts no one, not even her own superiors, to deliver justice for her family. And of course, we have to talk about Carly's reaction to Josslyn's crusade. I feel so incredibly heartbroken for Carly in these scenes. Laura Wright's performance, when she vehemently objected to Josslyn's demands for satellite access, was a masterclass in maternal terror. I think Carly's absolutely right here, and here's why her dialogue backed up my take. She has already lost Morgan to the violent underworld. The thought of losing Josslyn to a WSB revenge mission is literally destroying her from the inside out. When Carly begged Josslyn to step back, citing that grief would make her reckless and blind to danger, it made me feel the echoing trauma of Morgan's death all over again. I believe Carly is looking at Josslyn and seeing the same reckless, grief-fueled danger that has claimed so many lives in Port Charles, and her desperation to stop it is entirely justified. Yet, Josslyn's resolve is terrifyingly absolute. I feel like the scene where she makes her vow is going down in GH history. The way she stood there, her voice trembling but laced with pure steel, swearing on her father's casket to hunt the killers to the ends of the earth, gave me goosebumps. I think this is the exact moment Josslyn crossed the Rubicon. She is no longer just playing spy, she is declaring a blood feud. In my opinion, the writers are setting up a revenge arc that will rival the darkest days of the Corinthos and Cassadine War. Josslyn is using her grief as a weapon, and I am entirely here for this dark, relentless, unapologetic version of her character. She is embracing the darkness that her mother always feared would consume her. But the genius of this storyline is that the physical threat is only half the battle. The sudden, chaotic implosion at Jasper Jack's Enterprises, JJA, adds a brilliant layer of corporate espionage to the mix. I feel so incredibly engaged by the introduction of Hudson Parker into this specific arena. Hudson is the ultimate opportunistic vulture, and the way he slithered into the boardroom, using Josslyn's devastating grief as a weapon to argue she is unfit to lead, was deliciously evil. I think the writer's choice to have Hudson launch his coup right as the news of Jax's death broke was brilliant, because it made me feel the suffocating pressure Josslyn is under from every single angle. She isn't even allowed a moment to breathe before the wolves start circling her father's empire. The way I see it, Hudson Parker is the perfect antagonist for this chapter. I know some fans are complaining that Hudson's motives are too murky or that he is moving too fast, but I actually think the rapid pace of his corporate takeover is exactly what's needed, because I feel like it highlights Josslyn's extreme vulnerability. Jax explicitly named Josslyn CEO to protect his legacy, and Hudson is rallying the board to strip her of that title before the ink on the police report is even dry. I loved the smug, condescending smile Hudson gave her across the boardroom table when he suggested she step down for her own mental health. It wasn't just business. It was a deeply personal violation of her father's wishes. I believe Hudson is grossly underestimating Josslyn, mistaking her grief for weakness, which is going to make her inevitable retaliation so incredibly satisfying to watch. Josslyn is now facing another impossible choice: push her agonizing grief aside to fight a vicious boardroom war, or let JJE fall into the hands of a stranger. I genuinely think we're missing the point if we don't realize how cruel this dilemma is. I feel like this is the ultimate test of the Jax legacy. Jax was a corporate raider, a man who fought tooth and nail for his business empire, with a smile on his face and a knife behind his back. In my opinion, Josslyn fighting to keep the CEO title is the truest way she can honor him, proving that she inherited not just Carly's fiery temper, but Jax's brilliant, ruthless business acumen. She has to compartmentalize her trauma to save the company, and watching her struggle to maintain that facade is gripping television. And then we have Michael Corinthos stepping into the fray. I feel so incredibly conflicted about Michael's involvement, which is a testament to how well this dynamic is written. Michael tries to support his sister by throwing the massive weight and influence of ELQ behind her to stabilize JJE. The way Michael confidently promised to handle the board and block Hudson's maneuvers showed that classic Quartermain and Corinthos arrogance. I think Michael genuinely wants to help, but the way I interpret his actions, his brand of ruthless corporate protection might be the exact wrong medicine for a WSB agent who is already deeply paranoid. Michael's involvement blurs the lines between familial support and corporate overreach, and it adds a fascinating tension to their sibling relationship during a time of... This brings me to the most shocking twist of the week: the missing classified documents. I feel so incredibly tense just thinking about the moment Josslyn realized her father's private files had vanished from his office immediately after his death. The look of sheer, panicked betrayal on her face as she rifled through the empty safe was phenomenal. I think this is the moment the two storylines, the WSB murder mystery and the JJE corporate takeover, brilliantly collided. Who took the documents? Was it Hudson Parker trying to secure leverage for his coup? Was it Michael acting out of misguided protection? Or was it the WSB sweeping the scene to cover their tracks? I believe this discovery shattered whatever remaining trust Josslyn had left in the people around her, isolating her completely. The realization that her father's death is merely the opening salvo in a much larger, more violent war is a terrifying awakening for Josslyn. I feel like this is the best they've written the character's internal monologue, because she can no longer separate her family life from her WSB. When she whispered to herself that this was just the beginning, it felt like a promise of absolute destruction. I genuinely think we're missing the point if we don't see that Jax's missing documents are the key to why he was killed. Josslyn is now fighting a war on two fronts: the Boardroom against Hudson Parker, and the global underworld against Cullum's remnants and Sidwell's ghost network. The stakes have never been higher, and the personal cost has never been more devastating. What makes this entire storyline work so well for me is that it never loses its emotional core. Every corporate maneuver, every WSB satellite request, is dripping with the pain of a daughter who lost her dad. I love the way the writers balance the high-stakes espionage with the quiet, devastating moments of Josslyn holding Jax's old belongings. I think the choice to anchor her vengeance in her love for her father makes her descent into darkness completely justifiable. We are watching a hero be forged in the fires of unimaginable grief, and I feel so incredibly privileged as a viewer to watch this narrative unfold with such intensity and care. I know there are critics who long for the days of simple hospital drama, but I actually think this high-octane, grief-fueled espionage thriller is exactly what the show needs right now. It connects the legacy characters with the new generation's dangerous choices in a way that feels earned and impactful. I believe Josslyn's journey from a privileged teenager to a hardened, grieving CEO and WSB operative is the most compelling arc on daytime television today. The way I interpret it, she is about to burn the world down to find the truth, and heaven help anyone, be it Hudson Parker, Agent Z, or Jen Sidwell's goons who stands in her way. This is storytelling at its absolute finest, and I cannot wait to see how she dismantles her enemies piece by piece.